Standard & Poor's downgraded the outlook on Spain's debt to negative. We can find out why it did so and why it chose now to take action. I'm joined by the author of S&P's latest report on the country, Trevor Cullinan. Trevor, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Why the change in the outlook? Why the rationale?
Well, we've put the outlook on negative. It's still a very strong credit rating at AA+, but we've put the outlook on negative because we see a further deterioration in the public finances, rising debt burden, and we see much weaker growth as well going forward.
How bad are the public finances going to look over the next couple of years?
Well, this year we estimate the deficit around about 11.5% of GDP, close to 11% next year, and then staying well above the 3% target that they're aiming for by 2012. So the debt burden is going to rise towards about 80% of GDP, maybe even 90% by the middle of the next decade.
You've also said Spain is facing a prolonged period of below par economic performance. How far below par?
Well, we're comparing it to similarly rated credits in the AA space, and we see GDP per capita growth in Spain round about 0, in the AA space round about 2%. And the main issues there really are that the Spanish economy is highly leveraged, so we see people paying back debt, not taking on credit going forward, and there's also real issues with regards to rigidities in the Spanish market, particularly in the labour market. We see unemployment rising towards 20%.
How big are the deflationary pressures in Spain right now?
They're significant. The main issue is the imbalances between the strength of domestic demand in the past, which was that housing market led to very wide current account deficits because of the strength of domestic demand relative to the weakness of the external sector. So they had very large current account deficits. This means that there's external borrowing, and that external borrowing needs to be paid back, and also the domestic debt that they've taken on as well from the banks.
On the plus side, Spain, of course, is a member of the Eurozone. So does that shield it, and has it shielded it from some of the pressures of the global financial crisis?
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, we see that as a credit strength, most definitely, particularly in the light of these current account deficits. So Spain has a relatively weak external position, and in the past that would have put real pressures on the exchange rate. But because they're in monetary union, they don't have that pressure. They have monetary policy stability as well. But it puts the focus onto fiscal and macroeconomic policy of the government, and we've not really seen sufficient measures, in our view, to arrest the problems.
You say there's an absence of more aggressive fiscal consolidation efforts. I mean, do you expect to hear more about these efforts, to attain these efforts in the near to medium term?
Yes. We would usually resolve an outlook within 2 years. We could resolve that outlook at any point within those 2 years. But the Spanish government does have in its favour a relatively strong starting position in terms of debt burden. And also, I mean, another strength of Spain is that they haven't had the banking crisis that we've seen elsewhere, so that's not become a fiscal cost. So there are still some real strengths to the Spanish economy. It's still a very strong credit, but there's a deteriorating trend here.
I know your expertise or area of expertise, Trevor, is Spain, but I want to just, if I can, get a general question on the threat of downgrades in various countries right now. It seems to be growing, especially post-Dubai. What's your sense of what's happening within Europe and credit ratings and the risk out there?
Yeah. Well, in Europe, I don't really think it's a post-Dubai focus that we have. It's more the governments have come out with their budgets at the end of this year. They're explaining what their fiscal plans are going forward. As I said, we focus on their fiscal policy, and so that's why you've had actions now. We have Portugal on a negative outlook, Ireland on a negative outlook, Greece on a negative credit watch, and Spain on a negative outlook. So there is the potential for more downgrades.
Trevor, thanks for joining us today. Trevor Cullinan there from Standard & Poor's. Right.